the Sullivan Colombian prison. When the Denis Sullivan's tail was laid in roll, great legs rolled, a promise to refuse to stay the roll. Great legs rolled, some Wisconsin, that's the place for me. Sailing on the Sullivan Colombian.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Good evening. Nice to see you all. My name is Nick Hayes. We're going to have I'm not your entertainment tonight. We have much more talented and intelligent and funny people than I. I do have a couple things I want to share with you before we get started. I understand from the grapevine that when the news media started to pick up the idea that we were going to have a celebration here of Denis Sullivan experiences, that someone on Facebook, or maybe a few people, floated the idea that the Denis Sullivan would be appearing here at the Sailing Center today. It's not. It is not going to be here today. It might come back one day, but it's not going to be here today.
We call it really big boat day.
Pardon?
Really big.
Yeah, that would be really big. Exactly. There you go. So I wanted to just squelch any rumors, and if you hear anybody talking about the fact that the Denis Sullivan returned, you could go ahead and tell them, yeah, sure enough, you saw it tonight. We had wine and cheese aboard the boat at the dock of the Sailing Center. Just let them wonder. I think that would be a good way to handle that conversation. We've had a really great couple of days, actually. We're joined today by Eden and Maddie, who are leads at World Ocean School in Boston, where the Denis Sullivan now resides, who have been key to our being able to send 7 kids from Milwaukee Community Sailing Center on life-changing expeditions on the Denis Sullivan, both in the Atlantic and in the U.S. Virgin Islands in the last year. And so we're thrilled that they're here. And they're going to give us a report. They have a lot more to say than I do. And so I'm about ready to turn it over to them. I do want to offer up a little bit of a feeling for what happened today. So we want to do a lot more of this. That's why we're meeting today. We have aspirations to make sure that Milwaukee kids are connected to this boat for years and years and years and years and years. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And so, later I'm going to pass a hat. This is the hat I'm going to pass. Parkin gave this to me. This looks pretty good, doesn't it? What do you think? And Terry McMahon has been kind enough to seed it with a check. And you can look at how big this check is to see the kinds of generosity that we're looking for to make sure that kids can come do this program moving forward. And that's the last time I'm going to ask you for money. You don't have, we don't need to do that. But to support the idea that we want to continue to have kids participate in this program, we started the day with the news media here. WTMJ 620 came in with a reporter who spent about 45 minutes in an extended interview. And you know how reporters lob these kind of shallow questions out. Why did you get seasick? That was the kind of thing we heard. The kids who had the opportunity to be on the boat this last time, I'm breaking up a little bit. I actually had to type on my phone, I'm about ready to cry, and show it to other people, because they stretched with these amazing answers about how this was about discovery and recognizing other people and places in the world. This was not a boat ride. This was something really important in the lives of the people who went. And so that was the morning. Let's see if we can beat that now. Let's see if we can push that a little bit. I'd like to introduce Eden and Maddie.
Thank you very much. It's been an amazingly warm welcome here in Milwaukee. It's been really fun to be here, and thanks to you all for spending the evening with us. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of World Ocean School. We're going to share some Denis Sullivan updates, and I think the biggest point of the evening is really to get to celebrate 5 of our alums and their stories, and a chance for you guys to ask some questions. So I want to kick off and just introduce us a little bit. This is actually a photo that I took on my first transit aboard Roseway in 2009. I'm originally a farm girl from Oregon, and I had never stepped foot on a sailboat until I stepped foot on Roseway and sailed from Boston to the Caribbean. And we actually left Boston in a nor'easter. And in the midst of the journey, I thought, what in the world did I get myself into? This is pretty crazy. But at the end of it, we were in St. Croix working with the public school system, and I thought, as a former educator, I have never seen a better teaching tool. And a couple of things happened, both my recognition about never seeing a better teaching tool, and also for me recognizing that that journey that I had just been on was the most empowering experience of my life. And so what was supposed to be a 6-month volunteer opportunity just got a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and I ended up living on board Roseway, World Ocean School's flagship, for 4 years, and helping grow the programs and expand our work. And I thought that whole experience taught me that my analytical problem-solving brain, I was a chemistry major, really liked nonprofit work, and that nonprofits were really where I was well-suited. And so I went back to Oregon, where I'm from, and worked for a nonprofit out there and volunteered for a few others. And but then when World Ocean School came knocking on my door for an opportunity to come back, I jumped at the chance. It's funny, I told them, I will come back under one condition: you never consider me for executive director. So we see how that story went. So 18 months after I rejoined the organization, I took over for our founders, and I'm really proud to have been part of this transition of our organization in multiple seasons, but also this ability to acquire Denis Sullivan and launch it, really put some amazing programs on it. But we wouldn't be here running the programs if it weren't for this extraordinary lady who is our program manager, and I want her to share a little bit about her journey with World Ocean School as well.
Can you all hear me? Yep. Yeah? Okay. I'll
Keep it up.
Project. Excellent. Hi, everybody. My name is Maddie. Very much like Eden, I also grew up a farm girl, but on the opposite coast in upstate New York. And I did have an upbringing on small boats at a very, very micro level, kind of like what you guys have here on a very, very small lake in upstate New York. So I grew up small boat sailing, and I went to school out in Ohio. And when I was in college, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to be a student on a very similar program in the South Pacific, and it was such an eye-opening, extraordinary experience that really stuck with me and made an impression. So when COVID hit, I was living in Boston and working remotely out of my apartment, thinking this is not what life is about, and was eager to find that community and that adventure and that fun and all that learning that I had experienced when I was in college. So I found World Ocean School, and in 2021 I hopped on Roseway, our flagship in the Caribbean. Spent a year living on board and teaching in both St. Croix and in Boston. And in September 2022, we got the very exciting news that we were going to acquire Denis Sullivan. So I flew out here and spent a good month over there putting everything back together, and then took her down the rivers and all the way back to St. Croix, which was quite a magical journey. And then I've been they couldn't get rid of me. I've been sticking around ever since. I got tired after a while of living in a bunk with 10 other people and wanted a land life again. So I am now office-based, working on organizing all the education programs we do with folks like yourselves.
Cool. So lots of people think of us as, you're a sailing organization or you're a tall ship organization, and I want to just point out World Ocean School's mission. We talk about empowering students to be courageous and compassionate change makers for themselves, their communities, and the planet. And we do that through transformative programs on our iconic tall ships. And so I want to just talk about that for a little bit, because I think it's really powerful. It's not just about the ocean. It's not just about sailing. This is about providing new perspective. And sometimes World Ocean School does that in a few hours or a few days of just an introduction and just sort of a taste of what we do. For instance, I mentioned our St. Croix programs before. Those are about getting public school kids on board who've never been off their island, they don't know how to swim, they've never been on a boat before, and to get on board, raise the sails, see how learning applies to real life things, and turn back and look at their island. And for many students, they say, this is the first time I thought my island was beautiful. You know, just that complete different perspective of themselves and the power of raising thousands of pounds of sail, empowering a tall ship, and the power of looking at their home in a different way and looking at their community in a different way by building these relationships with their crewmates on board. So it's a really pretty amazing experience that extends beyond just the ship, you know, or just sailing or just the concept of the ocean. And so I think it's sort of the power of World Ocean School. I want to share a little bit about our organization's history. Technically, the organization was a concept for many, many years, and our founders, Dwight Duckelman and Abby Kidder, had been friends in college, and they had been talking about building community and experiential education at sea, and 9/11 happened, and that really sparked them into action, and they said, there's never going to be the right time. We've got to do this. So they quit their day jobs, and they started World Ocean School. So officially, World Ocean School was founded in 2002. And they thought about maybe it's going to happen on small boats, maybe we'll build a boat, which we do, and they heard about Roseway. Roseway is a National Historic Landmark. It had been most recently a windjammer, but one year the Coast Guard had come on board and found a little bit of rot. They said, sorry, you can't take passengers. If you can't take passengers, they couldn't earn any money, and ultimately the bank repossessed it. The Bank d'Armascata had multiple auctions trying to auction off this boat, and nobody wanted it. And so these young founders had said, oh, we just founded World Ocean School, let's go and talk to the boat. Because Abby had realized, it's Roseway, that sounds familiar. She had been on board for her grandparents' wedding anniversary when she was 8 and had found the journal entry of this experience sailing on Roseway. She thought, that's pretty wild. So they went to the bank and they said, we just founded World Ocean School. Well, the insurance was lapsing on the boat, and so the bank was very excited. And they said, okay, if you get this boat off our dock and insured in 10 days, she's yours for $10. So World Ocean School's first big purchase, our young founders were like, oh yes, what a deal. We're getting this historic landmark for $10. Well, if any of you know anything about wooden boats, that insurance was huge, and it was a major effort to get the boat off the dock. And then it took $1.5 million to get the boat going again. And a number of years. So they officially launched Roseway in 2005 to start programming. And at that point, they were like, oh, we've got the boat now, we've got to run programs. And they weren't totally sure where they were going to do it. And in 2006, they quickly decided New England kids don't really want to go sailing in the wintertime. And they had a captain who had sailed down in the Caribbean. And they said, okay, let's go down to the Caribbean and we're going to charter the boat. And we're going to raise some money. Because they didn't actually have the $1.5 million, I should point out. That was all became debt to start the organization, but they were committed to getting the boat going and getting kids on the boat. So they said, we'll go to the Caribbean, we'll raise some money down there, and that'll help pay off the debt, and that'll help pay for programming back in New England. But when they arrived down there, they realized actually Roseway was a little big for St. Thomas, it was a little big for St. John, very big for St. John. And on St. Croix, there's an oil refinery, and so fuel was cheaper. And so they were like, well, I'm not sure Caribbean's going to work out, but let's go to St. Croix and fuel up and figure out what we're going to do. And when they were waiting for the fuel truck, some folks walked down the dock and said, any chance you're an educational organization, because we're in dire need of supplemental programming. So St. Croix is a US territory, but the school system was failing, currently is still, unfortunately. And there was an oil refinery, and the reason there's this crazy picture here, that gave us a grant. So those people who walked down the dock had a connection, and they gave us a grant to start programming with public school kids. That started a relationship with the Department of Education, and we ended up receiving a federal grant to work in the US Virgin Islands with St. Croix students. And so by the time I joined in 2009, we had the most robust programming of World Ocean School there on the island, working with public school kids. And at the time, it was 5 days of programming where students would come out for about 3 hours at a time, raise the sails and learn about simple machines, and they'd learn about science, buoyancy and density. They'd learn about, they'd do a speed test, and they'd learn about poetry of the sea, and all of these things that connected back to curriculum in their classroom. And so we really expanded on that. But meanwhile, while I'm there, I'm thinking about, we're talking about this National Historic Landmark, and Roseway's history is largely around Boston, and it worked for the Boston Harbor pilots, and it had all of this history. And I said to our founders, why are we not in Boston? And they said, well, if you start programming in Boston, you go to Boston. And so we really started our Boston programming in 2010. And we have this beautiful opportunity to voyage from place to place. And so really in the summer months, we created these summer ambassador programs where students from all over the place could come and jump on board and voyage from place to place. And so that's really kind of the evolution of the World Ocean School programming, and that funny route in St. Croix that's really based us there. And so we've been there, and we just finished our 18th season working with the public school system in St. Croix. That's sort of a snapshot of that history. I wanted to just share, Tall Ships America has awarded us the Sail Training Program of the Year, as well as the Sea Education Program of the Year, just two of the sort of awards and sort of the industry standard. And I think that's probably part of the reason. I can't speak for all of Discovery World's decision-making in terms of thinking about us for the next life for Denis Sullivan, but I think that was part of it. I think we've created quite a reputation in the industry for really high-caliber experiential education programs. So I want to actually pass this off to Maddie at this point, because as she spoke about, Maddie was part of our remarkable crew relaunching Denis Sullivan. As I think many of you know, due to COVID, Denis Sullivan didn't sail for almost 3 years. And I'll give a little bit of backstory about how our conversations even began. But Roseway, as I mentioned, is a National Historic Landmark. She's approaching her 100th birthday, and back in 2019, I had a survey done that said we're going to need a major restoration for Roseway in the next 10 years, was the time frame back in 2019. But as we were thinking about the price tag and we were thinking about all of the implications with that, we realized it was going to be a big project, and the estimates were it was going to take around 3 years to do. And we knew that we have put World Ocean School programs on other boats before, and so we wanted to replicate that model, chartering other boats. And so that was our original knock on Discovery World's door to say, we know the vessel hasn't been operating, but we would love to put it into service, and we would love to charter it while Roseway undergoes her restoration project. And the conversation evolved, and it felt important for both institutions, actually, and we had a major donor that was willing to help support us with the acquisition. And the part of the agreement was, and one of the things we really wanted to be committed to, was the history of the vessel here and the significance to the city of Milwaukee and the community of Milwaukee, is to keep it as a Milwaukee flagship vessel. And so that it's still home ported here in Milwaukee, and our commitment was to continue to work with Milwaukee students. And so I'm thrilled that we've already had 7 Milwaukee students experience really high impact programming, and excited to help expand that number. But I want to have Maddie share a little bit more about sort of our process getting Denis Sullivan relaunched and what we've done since. Thanks.
I will just briefly talk about the acquisition. So we acquired Sullivan on September 14th, and she arrived in St. Croix almost 3 months exactly. I think it was actually December 15th, but it was like the craziest 3 months of my life. But we got here, and thanks to some of your faces I see in the audience who lovingly took care of her for a few years while she was at the dock, she was in decent shape, but it took a little while to get everything kind of put back together, and then a little bit taken apart. We took off all her masts here at the port, took her up to Manitowoc for some maintenance, a little bit of yard, a Coast Guard inspection, and then took off down the river. So you can see here, there's a picture of one of the locks that we went through. We went through a series of rivers and canals and about 25 different locks. And for a tall ship sailor, it was really weird to be so close to land all the time and so close to other boats. But you can see this little time lapse of, that was pretty much the whole trip, and it was really beautiful. And it was really bizarre to be on this giant wooden schooner with no masts. And you could hear all the river guys on the radio, and they kept asking each other, what is that?
How long did it take you to get to Boston?
So you can see kind of up in the corner here, we started up here, and then we went all down the rivers. We stopped for a hot second in Mobile, Alabama to breathe and restock. And then we booked it across to St. Pete, Florida, and we put it all back together, which took 3 weeks.
So you did Mississippi, not St. Lawrence.
Correct, yeah.
Because we acquired it in September, we thought, oh my gosh, this is late enough in the season, this is going to be tricky. But it turns out that the Army Corps of Engineers maintains those waterways to 9.5 feet. Well, what does Dennis Sullivan draw? 9.
And it was cold when we left, so going through the St. Lawrence would have been not fun. Yeah, so 3 weeks to put her back together. I think it took 11 days total to get down all the rivers, and the Mississippi was only 100 miles of that. So 3 weeks to put her back together, and then we onboarded new crew. So we did our crew overlap. The crew usually stays on for a year at a time, so we had new crew join us there, and then we took about 10 to 12 days to sail to St. Croix as a training voyage for the new crew, and as Denis' foray back into the Atlantic. So I just want to talk a little bit about the education programs that we run. Eden hinted at them a little bit. We run all sorts of education programs. Often in St. Croix, we're running 5-day programs with public school students. They tend to be 5th and 6th graders. They don't live on the boat, but they come every day for a whole week, and you really get to know them and to build skills and to build comfort on the water. And explore all sorts of new things. And then we have overnight programs, which is what all of the Milwaukee students here have participated in. And those will range from a couple of nights to 2 weeks, and everything in between. We focus on a variety of different educational components during these programs. Sometimes it's very academic, and sometimes it's really more about building community. So we have 4 core values that we talk a lot about, communication being one of them. So you can see we have students, again, from all over the world. Some of these pictures are from a particular program we did with some students from Boston International Newcomers Academy. So 18 recent immigrants to the United States came out last summer, and we sailed with them for 2 weeks from Boston to New York. We got to anchor at the Statue of Liberty for 4th of July, which was pretty magical, and then sailed back. So that was a pretty incredible program that we got to do. Communication, teamwork is another one. Obviously, setting all of these sails is no small feat, and living in community together for an extended period of time, you really get to build those connections and develop your team skills. So that's one of our other values that we talk about, and you see some of the Milwaukee students highlighted here. Trust is another one. There's a lot of trust building. These students come from all over the world. They don't know each other. They don't know the crew. There's a lot of trust that they develop between both themselves and the crew on board, which I think for me is one of the most magical things about our programs. The relationships that you build with one another, and the trust that you build in yourself as well. We talk a lot about self-worth and all the really incredible confidence-building things that you're able to do on the boat. Whether it's, believe it or not, some students don't know how to do basic chores. I have taught multiple students how to wash dishes or mop the floors, the soles, sorry. And there are other hard skills that folks learn, right? There's a lot of carpentry or bosunry opportunities on board as well. So there's a really wide range. But I want to talk a little bit about Denis Sullivan. So I don't know if you've seen on social media, she's been at Yard for a little bit now. We got a 6-week chunk of time to do some yard and give her some love, which was really great. You'll see here the crew is painting the hull, or they're power washing the hull in preparation for paint. And we have removed the monkey deck for various reasons, but she's looking really good. This is not a final product. That was a few weeks ago. But our port captain gave us the shipyard work list. So she got her U.S. Coast Guard and ABS dry dock exams. So you can tell we removed the monkey deck for a little bit of safety when accessing the head rig. As anybody who sailed out here knows, and as equally in the Atlantic, those swells get pretty big. And sending young students up onto the monkey deck was making us a little nervous. So for safety reasons, it came out, and it allows a lot more ventilation for the deck up forward, a lot easier to let her breathe. New cat heads were put in. We refinished the topmasts, so there was a lot of work bringing those down, sanding, varnishing, all of that, before they will go back up soon. Cutlass bearings and service max, the max props and shafts got serviced. All the blocks got serviced. A huge inventory of all the ship's gear. We brought a whole bunch of stuff off of Discovery World from their basement and have used some and not others, so we did a whole big inventory and kind of reorganized. And then routine maintenance. And you'll see there's 3 of our year-long crew members here that are giving the Wisconsin sign some love. I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to all the folks who have kept in touch and come to participate in programming or voyaging and maintenance. And I know some of you are here right now. And I think this might be a great time to have some students come up.
Yeah, I'm gonna just point out that some of you were here the last time that we did a smaller scale event like this for the first group that sailed in August of last year. Am I right? Luca, Blue, right? Would you two stand up? Luca and Blue. You probably recognize them because their faces shine brightly on our Denis Sullivan wall on the north side and have for a long time. And so we hung those pictures with them telling stories the last time we got together. So this time what we're going to do is celebrate the experience of 5 others. So Peyton, Dahlia, Angelo, Leo, and Leo, would you all come on up? So my job is to be like a radio reporter and lob really simple and kind of shallow questions at these kids.
Was the water wet?
Thank you very much. And I think you'll be impressed that they'll see right through that ploy. I think that's the best word for that. First of all, would you each introduce yourselves really quickly and give us a minute about what the decision was like to accept a crew spot for December this winter.
Nick,
Yep.
before you do that,
Yep.
these two sitting together didn't know each other before this event.
Yeah.
And look at how they're sitting together. It's awesome.
Exactly.
It's lifelong.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry.
You want to start?
Yeah, my name is Leo Madsen. I use he, him pronouns. I am 19 years old, and the decision for me to accept my spot on this journey was really easy. Blue, who went before, is my younger sibling, so I got through all of that anxiety and fear of missing out that happened in August when they went sailing on my dream ship, the ship of my hometown. So when the opportunity came around and I got my email message, it was like, there it is, done. I'm not taking any other jobs. I'm going to sail the Denis Sullivan and I cannot wait. That's what the decision was like for me. What about you, Leo?
So yeah, my name is Leo as well, so that does get a little bit confusing. I was kind of bummed when I learned that the Denis Sullivan was leaving Milwaukee because I've really enjoyed reading about tall ships, and it's one thing to read about something in a book, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to wrap one's head around what exactly you're reading. And I was just like, I want to see how this works, and I've just missed that opportunity. It's gone. And then I found about this, and that was really cool for me because I got to think I can put all this knowledge that I know in like these very vague ways into something concrete and something that I can actually look at and say, hey, I did this, or hey, I can see how you can sail upwind with something that looks like it really should just go downwind. Alright, I'm done.
Alright, I am Angelo, I am 17. Initially, I wasn't supposed to go on this trip. You know, I looked at it, I looked at it and I'm like, well, this one might be a little hard to make. So, you know, when I received the email that I could, you know, receive a spot on this trip, I was very excited. You know, I was in class, I've got a smartwatch, so I read the email right off my watch, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to the Virgin Islands to, you know, sail on the boat my great-grandfather helped, you know, construct. So that was very exciting to see. I learned that a couple weeks even before the trip, and I'm like, wow, well, I better get to packing, you know?
I'm Peyton. I also was a little skeptical before going on the trip. I originally was not going to put my application in, and I was a little too lazy. I was like, I'm not going to do it. But then I had some people encourage me. They were like, just try, just see how it goes, just take a chance, and I did. And
My name's Dahlia, and I kind of discovered the boat when I was 8 years old. My grandfather's birthday was hosted on it. I think it was his 73rd or 76th birthday. But I have a vivid memory of my entire family being extremely happy and extremely motion sick on that boat. It was very cold, and everyone was trying to huddle together and keep warm. And they were also very confused of what was going on because no one else really knew how to sail, because no one in my family was really big on sailing. I got into it like quite randomly. But I was also very anxious leading up to the trip, and honestly wasn't really sure if I wanted to go almost the night before of like the morning we were supposed to get on the plane and leave. But I'm very happy I made my decision to go because it was truly a life-changing event to swim in the ocean for my first time, which was also followed by some pretty not so fun events. Got really seasick and had to go to the port side of the boat where no one was swimming, so I could, you know.
We've all been there. Great. So my next question to you is, some of you I think have thought about a story that you wanted to share, maybe all of you. Maybe a moment of the experience that you would like to describe in detail. If you don't have something like that, that's okay, riff off, because you were all there, right? You can do that. Anybody want to jump in?
I can. I think an experience that I think about a lot is our first night doing anchor watch, which is when we stay up, or we get up for an hour of the night and we just kind of watch the boat, we take our bearings, things like that. And we had an anchor watch group, both in my group, yeah, both Leos. So I just remember the first night, it's kind of crazy to be on the ocean and just be able to literally look up at the stars, and the stars are right there, because in the city you don't really get that type of experience. And it was a very surreal experience. You're on the water and you just look up and it's just the night sky, and it was so much different than every other night I'm in my bed and I go to sleep and there's my ceiling, but this is the night sky and the waves, the small waves, and everything was just such a great experience. And, yeah.
Anybody have one?
Anchor watch.
Yeah, I'd like to agree. I mean, there was a lot of highlights for this trip. You know, personally, my favorite was definitely, well, besides getting to know people and their cultures and, how they go about their lives, mine was exploring the island, learning more about their culture, their history. Being able to hike the island and go snorkel, for the first time. I've never seen a sea turtle so big. few feet in front of me, so that was pretty cool to see. It's definitely an experience in a lifetime for me, especially with the crew that we had. It was great.
Building on that, just with the crew and the people at World Ocean School, when I was flying out, I had some delays, so I ended up in Miami. In Chicago. And my dad had to come and drive me so that I could fly the next day because my flight from Milwaukee was delayed, so I couldn't get the next one and to get all the way down to the U.S. Virgin Islands. And it was really cool, like, well, not cool per se, but rather it was really nice to communicate with people like Maddie and then later one of the sailors, Jess, and all of you guys, because I kind of held the boat up, stuck around for a day so I could catch up, and that was really cool to see how people were really willing to be accommodating and friendly, especially in such a difficult circumstance. And that was really nice just to see what sort of community, even before I got there, was being built.
Yeah, I feel like my experience on board is something special and which I learned a whole lot about, but I'm hearing a lot of really what's touching you guys and what's touching me too is my time being not in Milwaukee. And not only not in Milwaukee, but on an island where the people speak differently than I do, talk differently than I do, where there's actual reef life, which I have only ever seen in a magazine or on like Planet Earth television, right? The fact that was really, the thing that was really driven home to me when we were driving through to get to the boat on our first day was I saw a chicken walking down the road, and I thought, I'm from West Dallas. We don't have chickens who walk down the road. That's incredible. And then there was a goat walking down the road, and there were goats everywhere. But the thing about it that really got me is that the life that I read about, oh, here it comes. The life that I read about, the lives that I see are real. And rather than just understanding about it in my mind, in my brain, I put it into my bones and my body, and those people came to life. For me, it was that experience of the oneness of our community. That this water is that water, is that water, is this water, that boat is the same boat. And we are the same people. That was what was big for me. Yeah.
Anybody else have a highlight you want to mention?
Okay, I have a highlight I'd like to mention. One of my highlights would definitely be seeing dolphins. I've never seen a dolphin in real life before, and the first movie I've ever seen as a child was Dolphin Tale. In the movie theater, I remember seeing that very well. But I really enjoyed the dolphins, but I also wanted to touch on the community that was on the boat, and I actually had some familiar and friendly faces on the boat with me. I actually knew Angela before that, but it was really nice to have some friends, and everyone was really, really sweet as a whole. Kind of felt like a new little family that I kind of came about.
Dahlia, was that you in the picture jumping off the boat? In the trust picture?
That's Paige.
That was her.
That was adorable.
Yeah. We were calling out different animals or different shapes to jump off the side.
I couldn't tell you what that was.
Starfish, yeah.
So you guys were broken into crews, right?
Yes,
You had a crew. What did that look like? Was it on a schedule? How did you divvy up the work? Tell us a little bit about the day-to-day.
They were assigned, so
Wasn't it like 3 watches?
3 watches.
Yeah.
Right. Our watch was a small grouping of students from within the larger group, which we broke apart at certain times of day to study different things. And then we'd all rotate, and then we'd rotate one more time, so we'd all cover all of the things that we wanted to learn on that day, which included stuff like Eden had mentioned before, sea poetry, knots and speed, chores, right? Different tasks, and then some time for reading and reflection. And the day-to-day experiences of being on a ship. That's what our watches were like. What do you want to add something?
Oh, well, just a little bit more, because you guys talked a little bit about night watches, which were a different thing, where we'd break out into even smaller groups, and for I think an hour each night, we'd take turns making sure that the ship wasn't dragging its anchor, and that we weren't having any problems while everyone else was asleep. And so essentially we all took turns in different ways, in different groups, keeping an eye and running the boat.
To touch on that, I remember one night when we were in Anchor Watch, our boat was drifting a little bit, and we almost we didn't almost hit another boat, but like it was kind of close, and it was
one of those
it was
big
a
fancy yacht.
yeah, it was a yacht. We were a little and like a little community thing is every night every watch we would talk about like what are they doing in the yacht? Like the lights were on, and it was like midnight, really.
Yeah, right.
So we would tell everyone, we were like, what did you guys see them doing? And just how close did the boat get when you were watching? Yeah, that was fun.
So what did you do when you were draining anchor? Like, how did you get out of it?
We had our mate, first mate. Is his name Asher?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Asher. Yeah. Well, first order of operations was to wake Asher.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
and relay the things that were going on and the things we were seeing. And they had equipped us with the skills necessary to identify what was a dangerous situation and what was not. So, like Peyton says, we were not so familiar with the circumstances and therefore nervous. Asher helped to bring the situation under control and say, "That great job waking me. Those are signs of a dragging anchor, and yet everything is okay, and we're not dragging anchor." And we were like, "Oh, hurrah! That's great." Yeah, it was a really, really cool thing to do.
He got any sleep that night. He was up like every hour of the night. Yeah.
Poor guy.
There's some confusion with the bearings and trying to find those spots. So I think there was some miscommunication of which like light we were supposed to be looking at, and people. I think I might have been looking at the wrong one night, and I was like, wait, no, this can't be the right number. But it got solved.
What was the hardest work you had to do?
Chores.
Chores?
I thought I was getting away from washing dishes, but no.
Being in the galley was
Oh,
really excruciating.
it was
Sometimes
boiling
the
hot.
heat, it was very, very, very hot, and especially when the oven was on. But I did enjoy those really lovely cookies and brownies that the cook, what was her name, Brooke? Brooke made us, and she really did a good job. It was really fun.
Yeah.
It was so hot.
Yeah.
Not
Being in
fan.
the kitchen. Being in the galley.
How much responsibility did you have for sailing the boat?
we got to steer, which was pretty cool, and then we raised the sail.
Yeah, we would raise the sails and things
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, during our rotations, we took charge of different parts of the boat, which was a whole lot of taking care of what a ship is, and most of that, because we weren't doing any crazy maneuvers or anything, we were heading from one spot to another to go swimming or to explore such and such cool thing. It was a lot of raising and lowering sail, heading out to the head rig to deal with the foresails and all that madness. So for how much I wanted to control the boat, it wasn't enough. I wanted to do everything, but it's all of the skills that I expected to be able to do, all of the things that I usually have control over on a sailing center ship. Yeah.
I have a
Question back here. He's hesitating.
Go for it, sir. I have a question about safety. Did they drill you like man overboard, those kinds of safety at sea type things? What kind of experiences did you have there?
Did we? Yeah.
Day one, we had a safety talk.
Yeah, the first thing we did on the boat was the safety talk. We went over where fire extinguishers are, where the lifeboats are, how do we use those? Yeah, the emergency exit, like what to do in emergencies and things like that. So, yeah,
I think we all had different roles assigned in case of like a man overboard situation fire situation and abandoned ship, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. And none of those were like super important, but it was like, which lifeboat are you going to if somebody falls overboard? Are you somebody who's gonna be pointing at them so that we know where they are at all times? Like that sort of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, being acquainted with the general safety of where life jackets are kept, where those lists of what to do are posted all around the ship. Yeah.
What would cause the anchor to drag?
Yeah.
My
Not
own
enough
suspicion at the time was that we had dropped anchor in a spot that was not conducive to the Denis Sullivan being there, in terms of the anchor was close enough to other boats so that when the Sullivan would swing in that direction, it would appear as if our anchor was dragging, and we were really just getting closer and closer to the other boats that were near us that were anchored. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
excuse me, is that accurate?
Yeah, so they on Anchor Watch, they are given bearings, and so they are basically triangulating their position. But what was happening in this instance is that anchor was not dragging, but they were not on the bearings that they expected because they were basically moving around the anchor. So when we anchor, we anchor and we lay out a bunch of chain, and so depending on the wind direction and all sorts of factors, we sort of swing. And that swing then changed the bearings, and so it was enough of an alarm to alert the mate, but then the mate confirmed through GPS that we weren't actually dragging.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, they're both of them. Yeah, thank you.
That was a good question. This is a dad, by the way.
I kidding, Anchor? Anchor was dragging?
That was a very good question.
I got one. Okay. Beyond the like sort of the very neat technical things you learned, was there any really neat like relationships or friendships or sort of interpersonal things that came out of the experience that you really thought was neat and want to comment on?
Definitely. We actually had the chance to meet, I think we all became really good friends with Trey, who actually lives in St. Croix and he attends the university out there, and he's currently on St. Thomas doing school right now. But I think like he taught us a lot about his home, and like we all sat there having really long conversations about like asking him questions about how is it going to school here, especially me. I was interested in going to school there actually, and how living on the island is like, and what other boats has he been on, and things like that. I think made some good friends.
Yeah.
I know I made some really good friends.
What was really special to me about having Fritz on board was when we went to the Annenberg ruins, and we got into a conversation with that woman who was baking and cooking in the kitchen.
Who ended up being related to Trey.
Related to it. And we had an hour-long conversation just talking about her thoughts on the ships and the relationship between the U.S. Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands, and the tension that arose in those areas when slavery was abolished in one spot and not the other. It was really, really interesting.
It was.
Across from each other.
Right. So close.
Yeah, Fritz was basically our tour guide.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. He knew a lot, so we did learn a lot from it. And it was great having a local, he told us about his lifestyle, and it was really interesting to, experience another culture, so that was great, yeah.
Anybody have another question? Yeah.
So I know I've heard stories about how folks got seasick in the voyage, but was there ever an instance where the waves were so big that you felt nervous a little bit even? And everyone's at different levels of like
there were certain
water, comfort, and things like that. So.
Was the boat on a cliff?
There were times that
No.
I felt I was nervous. There were some swells that were a little nervous, and there were times where I was hanging on to the side, just focusing on the horizon, trying to calm down a little bit, make sure I'm okay. And there were other times where I'd have to go to the other side of the boat where people weren't at, so I could do things without people watching.
Yeah,
Over the side of the boat.
it was sketchy at times with walking
walking on the
like
on
walking
it was so
with
difficult.
the waves you know, that was really weird because you're all over the place. Like it was, you have to get used to that really, especially with some pretty big swells that we had. I definitely thought that I'd, you know, fall over or do something, but it was all good though.
What was the heaviest wind you had sails up?
Good question. It was pretty light all while we were there. And I know at some point we actually, I think toward the end, did we just move to motor?
We had the motor sail on our way back because the wind was so light.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember. Good question.
Were there any similarities between sailing a tall ship and then sailing some of the smaller sailboats that you might have sailed here?
Yes. Yes. I love that question because I'm excited to take that into our instruction over the summertime. I'm an instructor here at the Sailing Center, and all the skills that I've learned over the past couple of years sailing and working here, every single one applied. It was just big. Small knots were just transferred to large ropes or large lines, and everything worked in the same way. It all made sense, and I was able to apply it. And maybe that's just because of the kind of person I am, but I think it was all quite intuitive, the way the things enlarged themselves, and the skills, the technical skills were the same. Yeah?
Yeah.
It was a little bit weird just realizing that these are just like 20, or no, like that'd be too big, but like they're just a whole lot bigger versions. So like the sails that we use basically mostly the same, but they're just on a whole different scale, and it's not. And I think like one thing that we don't really get to see is that we probably could sail most of the boats that we have here. Well, sorry, most of the small boats we have here by ourselves, but it's just not an option to sail for a tall ship. Like you have teamwork is essential. Otherwise, you're just kind of stuck.
Did they ask you guys to do anything that you thought to yourself, there's no way on earth I can do that, and then you did it? Like jumping in the ocean for the first time? Coming face to face with a turtle for the first time? Did you guys think about those things at all? Did you go, there's no way, and then you did it, you were just surprised or excited or?
When we were jumping off the side of the boat where we had the picture of Peyton and everyone else, and I was really afraid to jump off the boat, and I think they had to do some convincing, and they did a little countdown, and I finally jumped, and that was fine. But I didn't jump again. But I just floated in the water, and I was looking around at the islands, and I just remember just looking. I was staring. Actually, it was so pretty. I can still remember it.
We went like sunset time. It was really great.
Yeah.
What about climbing the rig? What was that like?
Did you guys have the cocktails?
We didn't. Because conditions weren't permitting, we were mostly heading on an upwind course just enough that we didn't set the refuge. But climbing the rig? Did you? Yeah, I did. Yay! Yes. I spent my autumn working as an electrician in the theater, so I was up a lot at the time, and I had harnesses, so I was comfortable and familiar with that equipment, so that the actual climb was not a problem for me personally. But getting up and looking down was beautiful. Just such a simple thing, and the clear water. Yeah.
Yeah.
My toes
Leo,
got
because you've been on a tall ship and in the rigging of a theater,
Right.
did you see the similarities?
Oh yes, all
Yeah.
of them.
Because I know
Safeties and
I'm actually a theater technician,
yeah.
and you get up in the rig of the theater, you go, it's a ship, it's just not moving.
So simple.
It's, the stage is the deck.
Yes.
That's why they call it a gaff rig now. Okay.
Yeah.
Gaff rig.
But
Everything's just more
it's
electric.
one thing that, it's just one of those duh moments is that when theaters were created, the rigging of theaters, they must have used sailors.
Absolutely.
Because it's all the same skills it's just not rocking.
Yeah, I love that I was able to apply it to a different area of my life. That was great.
Anything you guys want to add?
Did you climb the rings?
Tony?
Just a quick question, context. Can each one of you kind of describe what your sailing experience has been prior to that? How many years, what kind of boats you sailed on?
Where do you want to start?
Okay. What summer was that? Okay, after freshman year of high school, I moved to Shorewood, Wisconsin, and over that summer, my mom signed me up for level 1 sailing here, while I had a job at Gift of Wings Kite Shop right over there. Wait, is it over there? It is over there. Okay, it's right there. Yep. And so after work, or if I didn't work, I'd just come over here, start sailing, and probably go visit my coworkers. And the following summer, I did level 2. We sailed on Toras and Catalinas. Toras for level 2 and Catalinas for level 1. And other than that, I don't really have much experience with sailboats. I have been kayaking. I really like kayaking. I have experience with the outdoors, I would say. I'm into rock climbing, but I don't do that frequently, but it is something I'm familiar with. So the harnesses for climbing, that was familiar. I knew how to put it on. I was very nervous when I got up there though. It was really high. And there was like a couple boards to stand or to sit on, and when we kind of got to the top, it got skinnier, and my sandals kept folding into U's, and my toes were getting really cramped, and it kind of hurt. But it was a really nice climb.
I think this will be my 10th summer, 10th season sailing. So, been here a while. Everything through the Milwaukee Community Sailing Center up until my experience with World Ocean School, and I have no prior experience before that. No one in my family sails, anything like that. But I'm almost always in the water. I'm a swimmer, so.
Well, I've been sailing for about 12 years, but I've been on a boat or around boats for really, really young age, most likely before 1. And I picked it up from my grandfather. I mean, he owns a boat, and it hasn't been on Lake Michigan for a while, but we take it out, and we've sailed out there before, and there's just something about it that I love. I love being on the water. I love how the wind, how something so simple can move a vessel of any size. So it's stuck with me, and the adrenaline, and then there's the calmness of it too. But I'm an adrenaline junkie, so of course I love hitting waves and pretty close to capsizing. It's just.
So do you like the little dagger boats that more than the really big keel boats, or?
It depends on the day, but yeah, I like the little. They're a lot better at maneuvering, and if I felt like flipping one, then I totally could. So.
Yeah. I don't know how long I've been sailing. I would assume less than 10 years, but I'm not fully sure. I've taken prams, level 1 a few times, level 2 a few times, level 3, and then starting last summer I worked with Leah, which thankfully we were not teachers in the same classes because that would have also been difficult, but teaching younger kids those same level 1, 2, and 2 classes that I taken previously, which was pretty cool.
And this summer I will be an instructor again. Last summer I was an instructor with Leo and was actually one of the leaders in a class Dahlia was in, which was super cool. And the summer before that was my first ever, so I'm really new to sailing. My family is not a sailing family. For some reason I've always been really interested in it, and I have a lot of technical knowledge, like you were saying earlier. I've done a lot of reading and I understand the physics of the thing, but my body has only ever gotten to be on a boat in these last 2 years.
I think your family is now a sailing family.
I think so too.
I want to let you all know that every one of these 5 supreme beings is a qualified sailing center instructor, and the only reason Peyton and Angelo are not going to be here this year is they're both traveling internationally this summer. But I've told them and their parents that they can come back anytime they want. You know, I think I told Peyton she can come back when she's 30 if she wants to. Dahlia is going to begin as an instructor this year, and Leo have been instructors together already. And you can tell we have some talent on our team. So I want to do one more thing. We're not going to have everybody go back there, but what we have built is a wall of photographs. And you need to know a little bit about how that wall was conceived. So on the days after Maddie and her crew took the Denis Sullivan out of Milwaukee, I got a call from Discovery World that said, hey, do you guys need some extra parts? And we went over there, and I think we took 2 truckloads of things out. And many of those things were sold in the rummage sale last weekend. It was a donation, and we got things like a radar and some hardware and some fasteners and some winch holders and things like that. But in the basement of Discovery World was a hallway that went from the tool shop to the crew quarters. And the hallway was loaded with images of all of the experiences that they'd had from building the boat all the way to sailing the boat while it was sailed from Discovery World. And those images were being taken off the wall. And so we asked if some of them could come here, and Chris Winters kindly came and designed the layout that you see on the wall back there, but we were explicit that we needed some space for the photographs of the experiences of the kids that were going to go sail on those boats. And so Blue and Luca were the first to appear on the wall, and everybody here is going to appear on the wall, and you guys all have your crew photos to take home. There's one for each of you, so find yourself in the photograph. And then what I hope you'll do is go pay homage to the Denis Sullivan altar, which is just going to keep growing with your support on the back, because there's some new pictures back there. Thank you. You guys want to finish up? Yeah, we have one more thing for Maddie and Eden, right?
Yeah, from Maddie.
This should go around.
That was great. Oh yeah, you should start passing that around more. That's a great idea.
So now that you've heard a little bit about our programs and what they involve and what they look like, I just want to highlight 3 new opportunities this year. So Luca and Lou both did our Summer Ambassador program, which is an annual open enrollment we've done for many, many years. And it's for anyone ages 12 to 15. No previous sailing experience is required, although I know that folks here come with a lot of sailing experience. Students will come from all over, but again, mostly from these 3 main hubs that Royal Ocean School is attached to: Boston, St. Croix, and now Milwaukee. And the idea is to sail through the Long Island Sound and the coast of Maine, and we'll do some site visits. We'll learn about whaling and all sorts of New England history, and it will be something very similar to what these 2 experienced last year. And we are adding a new open enrollment opportunity this year, an advanced ambassador for slightly older students, ages 16 to 19. So very similar to the winter ambassador program that y'all did, but our goal here is to kind of push the boat a little bit more, and instead of anchoring every night, the idea is that by the end we will be transiting with a 24/7 watch style. So students will get to sail overnight and all of that. So again, folks from all over. Trey has already signed up to come, so he and a few other St. Croix ambassadors will be joining us. And again, that's for slightly older students, and that's at the end of August. So the summer ambassador is from August 1st to 11th, and advanced is August 15th to 22nd. And then we are planning on hosting another winter ambassador trip sometime over winter break, and again for students ages 16 to 19, and that will be in St. Croix. So again, from St. Croix to the other Virgin Islands.
Will there be opportunities for chaperones?
You never know. You never know.
No.
I mean, plenty of volunteers from here.
Yeah.
And you do have sunset sales, right, in St. Croix?
We do, both in St. Croix and in Boston, we do sunset sales. A lot more in St. Croix, yes. So if you're ever there, please, please, please let us know. We would love to have you come sailing with us.
What is the career path for the youth who strive to work and live aboard a tall ship?
There's a lot. First of all, you should consider coming to be crew one day. When you graduate,
School crew.
yeah. When you graduate high school, once you've graduated, you are welcome to apply. Every year we have recent high school grads who come on board. So there is that. Working as World Ocean School crew is really unique because it's a year-long opportunity, which isn't very typical for tall ships. And you get two very different experiences in St. Croix and in Boston, and everything in between, and offshore transiting, which is also not something that a lot of tall ships do these days. And so you spend a whole year really, really building a skill set. And when I got off my year on Roseway, I had almost enough sea time to apply for a 100-ton captain's license. So it's a lot of skill building and time and love and energy that World Ocean School team really puts into the crew. So,
Do you ever participate in tall ship events?
we do. Yeah, every year we go to Gloucester for the Gloucester Schooner Fest, which is my favorite event of the entire year. It's so much fun. And last year we also participated in the Chesapeake Bay Schooner Race. So from Baltimore to Norfolk, Virginia, a bunch of tall ships come together and do a race there as well.
You can all follow World Oceans on social media and find a lot of this, but also in our partnership, I don't know if you remember, but when they were heading to Chesapeake, we tried to get some adults to go down, Tony and others. And as I understand it, the report is they had a very successful race, but you can ask about that in the sidebar.
Well, I'll just say, we brought Roseway here, actually, in 2010 for the Tall Ships Festival, and my personal ambition is when Roseway gets back in the water, the next Tall Ship Festival that then happens, to bring Dennis Sullivan back and do a warm welcome back in this community. So cross your fingers and look forward to that Tall Ship Festival that can bring Dennis Sullivan.
We're going to need to have some dredging done, Holly, because we need the boat on the wall.
Well, I'm laughing because we were actually out on the water when you guys came in for the Tall Ship Festival in 2010, and some of our boats escorted you guys in.
Yep.
I was on the Sullivan.
I was on Roseway. So.
Yeah, and we were watching you guys come in, and some of the sailing center sailboats went out and chaperoned you.
I want to really quickly ask Terry to give us a few words about some of the work that he's doing to make more sailing possible for Milwaukee kids. I mentioned at the beginning that we wanted to do this many times, and I don't know that I was particularly clear about this. We were able to provide almost complete financial support to everyone that went on the winter experience. And I think we did something equal in August. And that happened through generosity from all directions. It happened from World Oceans donors. It happened from our members who donated things like flights to make it possible for people to go, cash donations like Pass the Hat. But we're building a much more formal campaign that I think Terry's going to give you a little chat about.
Yeah, this is the business side of it. So we are in the process of trying to raise some real serious dollars over a multiple year period so that we can continuously send Milwaukee kids to the Sullivan and hopefully to the Roseway. Last week I submitted a proposal to a local foundation for $10,000 a year for 5 years. I think our success in that is probably better than 70%. Tomorrow, Eden and I and Maddie and Nick are meeting with 2 other foundations with the same request. And our goal is to try to get $50,000 a year for 5 years to fund enough that we can have an entire deck full of Milwaukee kids on the boat, both in St. Croix and Boston. So if any of you people have any connections or personal contributions, that's quite a lofty goal, but I think we can get there. And when we're talking about the impacts that we made, and we're going to, the press stuff that we had today we're going to use as some marketing tools. It's quite emotional, but it really is life-altering for these kids that have been on the boat, and they'll speak for themselves. But when you look at the audience we have in Milwaukee that needs this kind of exposure, we need an armada of boats like this. And I think the first step is to raise this kind of money and then try to raise that level to some of the bigger foundations once we make a bigger impact. So this is just the beginning of a huge journey, and I hope you join us. And if you personally can donate, if not, if you know somebody that can, or you know some foundations or businesses that will participate, let us know and we'll approach them and try to make this thing a huge success. So, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Sidebar, have a glass of wine, hang out if you want. Thanks to David Drake. Thank you very much for the music. And boy, holy cow, are these kids awesome. And thank you.